ourselves. Worshipping is one way of purifying ourselves, and it goes hand in hand. The more you purify yourself, the better worshipping you can do. But then worshipping itself also helps with purification. Okay, let's look at this verse. This is Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, verse number 138. So God talks about what He expects from us, and then says, "Sibghat Allah, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ صِبْغَةً وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ." This is color of God. Sibghat Allah. This is color of God. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ صِبْغَةً. Who is two ways to translate that? Who gives better color than God? Or what color is better than color of God? And then says, وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ. And we are His servants. We are worshipping Him. See how ibadah, worshipping, being servant, and color of God are sitting in the same verse, as if it is telling us that by being His servant, we are applying the same color that He has to ourselves. We are becoming similar to Him, but of course within our very limited human being framework. Yeah. Just as a footnote, another interpretation of Sibghat Allah, which is based on comparing it with some of the biblical texts, is that it's not actually color of God, but it is baptism by God. But everything that I said also applies there. So instead of color of God, again, baptism by God. But it's still the same thing. So what is the criteria for salvation? The criteria for salvation will be purification. So criteria for salvation will be purification, and it has to be this. It cannot be other than that, because we are talking about relationship between human being and the Almighty. Now, this purification, you can find this purification in the concept of purification in other religions as well. As I promised, let me just very quickly take us through some of the terminologies and concepts in other religions. So, for instance, in Buddhism, okay, there's these four noble truths. Okay, and basically, I don't want to prolong this, but these four noble truths are all about sorrow, the fact that human being is suffering, life is suffering, and then it says that there is a way to come out of this suffering. Okay, what is the way to come out of this suffering? There are noble eightfold path. There are 8 things that you need to do to come out of this suffering. Okay, I just read the title of these 8. Have the right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Is it too different from the concept of purification? It's just talking about all of these. I can just write purification at the top and then write these 8 beneath it and just connect and say these are all the same. So see, the concepts are same. No, they are saying suffering, and they say to come out of this suffering, you need to do these 8 things. We are saying we want to go back to the Almighty. And in order to go back to the Almighty, we need to purify ourselves. And then our book, the Quran, tells us what are the means and ways of purification. So that's the reason, Irtiqa, that I try to show that it's not exactly like, oh, this criteria is unique to Islam. It's not unique. It's very generic. And that's the beauty of it. Again, there are lots of things to talk about when we get to pluralism. But going back to that sub-question that you had, that can people other than Muslims reach salvation, I say, how can we keep arguing that the Almighty is fair and knowledgeable and wise if our answer to your question would be no? How can we say then that the Almighty is fair, that there's a unique way of reaching salvation that only us Muslims know it? and other people do not know it. And therefore, we have the chance for salvation. Others, oh, they don't have the chance for salvation unless God forgives them. How can we then say that God is fair? Because at the end of the day, the reason you and I are Muslim is very simple. We were born in a Muslim family. Let's not deceive ourselves. Yeah, we have studied Islam and all that, but at the end of the day, I am Muslim, you are Muslim because we were born in a Muslim family. The reason another person is a Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or Jew is exactly the same thing. According to us Muslims, who made us being born in that family? The Almighty, right? So how can he then say that, okay, I made you to born in a Muslim family, so then you are Muslim, I'm giving you, so you have a chance to reach salvation. The rest of the people, I made them not to be born in a Muslim family. That's why they are not Muslim. And of course, that's why they will not be able to reach salvation. That doesn't make sense. That does not fit with the description of God that we have in Islam or in Abrahamic religions, or for that cause, for that reason, for in any other religion. So that's my answer to your question. I didn't want to prolong this. Otherwise, I would have also given examples from Hinduism, from Zarathustra, Zoroastrianism, and some other religions. The reason I picked up Buddhism is not because I have more sympathy for Buddhism. It's because they are much more different than us. We believe in personal God. They do not believe in personal God. Philosophically, you may say that they believe in impersonal God. Okay, so it's interesting when I bring examples from that side to show how much things are similar. And by the way, if you are hearing this noise, this is my cat actually just doing me, and I'm get used to it. I mean, in almost all the talks that I have, no matter what I do, he always comes and interrupts. So I have just accepted that as a one of the realities of my life.
No, that's perfect. Um, but I have so many follow-up questions to so much of what you said, and it's so interesting because I think the first follow-up question that I have is might not be directly related to what we're discussing, but I think is an important point to clarify. If you can maybe you don't need to explain it very thoroughly, but just simply for our viewers, do you why do you think that there is a distinction between personal God and impersonal God? And do you think that because at the end of the day, these are all human labels that, people have made, um, do you think that human labels can apply to God?
It's a very good question. My straightforward answer is no. And in fact, I'm very glad that you asked that, because I never thought that we will go into that level of talking. And so let me try to very quickly answer that. I call it is called personal and impersonal because human being needs terminologies, and at the end of the day, when we think about religion, religious philosophy is always the foundation from which we are thinking, right? I know we have text and all that, but even understanding that text goes back to the way that we see everything that comes from religious philosophy. In religious philosophy, these terminologies are very famous. So personal God, impersonal God, simply because when you look around, you see that yes, that seems to be true. So Abrahamic religions, Hinduism, these are all have personal God, and what that means by personal God is that there's God as if he has his own person, and then it is us. So he created us. So it's kind of that sort of external being that has that relationship with us. Impersonal God then would be something that, for instance, Buddhists believe in, or some of the Sufis believe in. That it's not like God is a person outside of the universe and outside of everything that exists, outside of the existence that we are seeing just here. Uh, uh, it's difficult to explain it, but it's not personal. It's the essence of the life that we have. It's that essence of the life. So that's a way terminology that people use, and it is helpful because, for instance, if you teach religion to students, if you just say that, well, Muslims and Christians and Jews have God, they do believe in God, and Buddhists do not believe in God. If you say it that way, although if a Buddhist is sitting there, they say, yeah, totally right, but you haven't said something that is 100% correct and accurate. Because once you start explaining what God is and what is human being doing and what Buddhists are trying to do, then the questions will raise that, well, do they really not believe in God? And that's where you find that, okay, maybe it's more accurate to say that they do not believe in personal God. They believe in impersonal God. However, what you said is totally true, because in some of my other writings in Farsi, I've made this point that although when it comes to teaching and philosophical thinking, we can always say God, personal or impersonal, and of course it has to be either this or that. It cannot be both of them, right? But there's another way to think about it. Even making that categorization and dividing the Almighty into these two, that itself also comes from our mind, our very limited way of thinking. Our thinking does not allow us to go beyond this. We think, okay, it is either this or that. This is it. What if, what if the reality, the truth, is something far beyond these categorizations? And then that personal God and that impersonal God are image of that ultimate truth. So that would be my answer to you, but it is something that we need to talk about it in much more detail later. So
Right.
I think I managed to answer your second question, which is what is the criteria for salvation in Islam?
Mhm. Yeah. But I do have two more follow-up questions because it's just such an interesting topic. And these both tie into each other. So the first question is, um, just how you listed the eight noble paths in Buddhism. Uh, if you had to maybe explain the different things that we can, the different tasks we can undertake to achieve purification in Islam very quickly, how would you like, what are some of the things that you would perhaps tell somebody?
I think, Irtiqa, that your next question, your next main question from me would be, what does spirituality mean? Uh, Perhaps
No, 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 no.
if I try to answer that, then I will be able to answer this question as well. Because we first need to understand what spirituality mean
Mm-hmm.
before being able to say, okay, so what should we do for that? For that,
Okay,
otherwise, you
okay.
are talking about something that is not yet defined. Uh,
Right.
so, um,
No, I was speaking, sorry to
mm,
interject, but I was speaking in terms of purification.
yeah.
You said that we, in Islam, we
Mm.
achieve, if you're talking strictly about Islam, that worship is a form of purification. So what would be some other, like, just name like two or three things?
No, I understood what you say. Okay, sorry, I understood what you say. It is easy to say that um, the criteria for salvation is purification, which is Tazkiyah. It is easy because I just showed you a verse of the Quran. So as long as you are following the Quran, you cannot disagree with me. It's just a verse. It is not that easy to then explain what purification actually means. And if I manage to illustrate that, then I think I might be in a better position to try to answer your question. So again, I go back to the Quran, because when it comes to purification, yes, I can of course go and read about it here and there from different books and all that. And I'm sure I will learn a lot from that. But because I have derived this verse from the Quran, surely in order to understand what the Quran means about it, I need to go back to the Quran and see what the Quran is talking about. When I look at the Quran, Irtiqa, I find that, okay, let's think about this logically. The criteria for salvation is purification. Okay, that's fine. Good. Later on, I will discuss for you my understanding that even the purpose of religion, like Islam, is to get us that purification. So the criteria is purification. The criteria for salvation is purification. The purpose of religion is purification. So therefore, surely all the instructions in the Quran, all the rulings should be concentrating on this for our purification. There shouldn't be any other reason for having these rules. I mean, why God wants to give us something else? It's all about this, right? If you think about it that way, then I think the answer is become very easy. We, in our life, have three relationships. We are in three relationships in our life. Relationship with others. By others, I mean human beings, animals, including my cat, and the environment. So that is the first dimension of relationship with others. Second dimension, relationship with us, with ourselves, with your own soul, with yourself. So that's the second dimension. Third dimension, relationship with that ultimate truth, the one that we call it God in Abrahamic religions, or Allah in Quranic terminology. So human being is in three relationships. Relationship with our own soul, relationship with the world around us, people and all, relationship with the Almighty. When you have relationship, then you need to be perfect in that relationship. And being perfect in a relationship means to have the good morals in that relationship. In Arabic, and it's also the same in Farsi and in Urdu, they call it akhlaq, khulq, akhlaq. So what we need to do what we need to do in these relationships is to have good akhlaq, good morality in our relationship with others, our relationship with our own soul, and our relationship with the Almighty. So I'm talking about a triangle here, a triangle. There are three relationships. Tazkiyah, therefore, means to work on this triangle, work on these three relationships. Every verse of the Quran that instructs us about doing something, yeah, I'm not talking about the verses, for instance, that were specifically giving some instructions about how to deal with this particular issue at the time of the Prophet. That was something else, but although even that was ultimately for purification. But the instructions to the Muslims, do not commit adultery, for instance, try to fast, worship, give charity, forgive others, be patient, etc. Yeah, all of these fall into one of these three relationships, and all of these ultimately help with tazkiyah. Fast is, in a way, relationship between us and the Almighty. Prayer, relationship between us and the Almighty. Giving money for charity, relationship between us and others. Not wasting time, not committing adultery, relationship between us and our own soul. So Tazkiyah would be working on this triangle, these three relationships. So in answering your question, what can we do to achieve purification? My answer would be we need to understand this triangle. We need to try to have our best morals, akhlaq, in these three relationships. And just to add to that, we can never judge whether our relationship with the Almighty is very good or not. Okay, we can only hope for that. Yeah, we can only hope for that. Human being is so complex and complicated psychologically that it is also quite difficult to understand whether our relationship with our own soul is good or bad. One dimension out of these three that is much easier to measure, assess, evaluate is our relationship with others. That is that moral and ethics that everybody talks about. That is much easier to assess and evaluate. So what I'm trying to say, Irtiqa, is that if we think that, okay, on this triangle, my relationship with Almighty is Alhamdulillah, perfect, very good. I'm sure He loves me and I love Him. My relationship with my own soul, very good. I'm in peace. I'm totally fine. But hey, people say I get angry very easily, and they say that I'm sometimes rude towards them, and they say that I become offended very easily, and basically people think that I have very bad akhlaq and morals. But surely they are wrong. I'm saying no, actually, my friend, if that dimension is showing you your relationship with others, that you're not doing very well, most probably you're also not doing very well in the other two dimensions. It's just that you cannot measure those two, and you just have this illusion that you're good at them. But if you are good with others, then hopefully you're also good with the Almighty, and hopefully you're also good with yourself. So that's my question, my answer for that.
Right. So I think I really wanted that answer to lead into uh, the actual and last follow-up question that I want to ask you, which is, so in all these different religions that we've discussed so far, of course, there is morality and there is how you treat people, how you treat yourself, but there also, it seems almost all religions, whether they believe in a personal or impersonal God, they seem to have certain rituals. So, for instance, in Islam, you mentioned praying, fasting, uh, pilgrimage. In Buddhism, we talked about the eight paths. We can find something similar in Hinduism, and just I think in every religion, right? So, but I think that then becomes the concept of following rituals, which you said are ultimately there for purification. But if they're prevalent in every religion, then does that not become a little problematic for, say, an atheist or an agnostic person that sort of, embodies purification, tries to purify themselves to, whatever extent they can, they lead a good, righteous life, they don't harm anybody, but I think what's missing, obviously, are these rituals. So it's it gets a little difficult to kind of tie these two ideas together because all people that are conforming to a religion seem to be obligated, in a sense, to perform rituals. So what would you say about that?
So there are two things here that I think we need to consider. Number one, as you said yourself, you made reference to it. These rituals are all supposed to help us with something. It's not the ritual itself that is doing something. So that ritual is a form that we adopt in order to reach something. Inna salah tanha anil fahsha wal munkar. Prayer advises you against doing evil things and immoral things. Fahsha and munkar. Okay. For fasting, it says لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you hopefully become more pious. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. With zikrullah, with reminding of the Almighty, your heart will become more confident. Okay. So the rituals are not for the sake of rituals. The rituals are for reaching something. And of course, I just not need to add that when I say the verse inna salat tanha anil fahsha wal munkar, that doesn't mean that the only benefit of prayer is just to make us be in distance from evil things. Prayer brings lots of many other things as well, but that is one of the outcomes of praying. Uh, Having said that, your question is absolutely very important question, because what you are asking me is that, well, there are people who do not believe in God, not even impersonal God, yet they seem to be good in relationship with others, in relationship with their own soul. So what about them? Because they don't seem to even recognize or appreciate that there's a third dimension in this triangle. And my answer to that is that, well, if they do not recognize that third dimension, then they don't have any duty about it. They don't have any responsibility about it. If they're honest about not believing in it, if they're honest about not recognizing it, then they don't have any duties about it. So therefore, their purification will solely be dependent on those two dimensions rather than the third one. It's very much like, for instance, if I tell you, if you tell me, oh, Farhad, you need to be you need to sit a little bit more respectfully, and there's a person here, an elderly person here in the room. If I say, oh, sorry, I never even saw that person. I'm very sorry. Okay, I sit now respectfully because I didn't see that person. Nobody will say Farhad was rude because I didn't see that person. If I see that person and then decide not to respect him, then I am rude. Same goes to the relationship with the Almighty. If you recognize that there is ultimate truth, but still don't care about it, then yeah, that's not good. That's it. That's immorality in itself. That's not respectful. You're not working reasonably enough for your purification. But with all honesty, you don't see that third dimension. You don't recognize the Almighty. You're convinced that there's nothing beyond this materialistic world. You're honestly convinced about it. Then the third dimension does not even apply here, and therefore your purification is for those two sides, those two dimensions, and not the third one. This word honesty is very important, and I hope that in some order of our discussions we can get back to this, because I can bring you verses of the Quran that shows us that how much dishonesty is important, and that even people who have wrong belief, even shirk, if that honesty is there, they're absolutely fine according to the verses of the Quran. I hope we have time later in other episodes to talk about that.
Okay. So now let's turn to spirituality.
Okay.
It's a word that's become almost universal. People describe themselves as spiritual but not religious, kind of what we were just talking about, or find spirituality through art, nature, even silence. How would you describe spirituality from an Islamic and a human perspective? And can someone be truly spiritual without identifying with any religion at all? I mean, yes, we did talk about something very similar to that right now, but that was more so in the context of salvation. If we just talk about it from a spiritual standpoint, what would your answer be?